She was sharing one plate with her kids, and the lonely millionaire CEO sat at their table. Her life changed completely. Before we start the story, leave in the comments what city are you watching from. And at the end, don't forget to rate this story from 0 to 10. Enjoy the story, everyone. Maddie Clark placed a single plate of pasta in the center of the table and saluted. "Attention, soldiers." Owen, 7 years old, straightened his posture. Theo, 5 years old, dropped the napkin he was turning into an airplane. "We have one plate. There are 3 of us. Do the math and chew with honor." Owen analyzed the plate like a general studying a battle map. "Mom, if we divide it into 3 equal parts, each person gets approximately 33.3% of the pasta." He tilted his head, calculating. "But Theo chews slower, so technically he'll enjoy more per gram consumed. That's not fair." Theo crossed his arms. "I chew at the right speed. You're the one who swallows too fast." "Soldiers." Maddie raised her hand. "There's no arguing in the barracks, only discipline." She picked up the serving spoon with the precision of a surgeon. Portion 1, basic fuel. She placed pasta on Owen's plate. Portion 2, energy for the afternoon. She served Theo. Portion 3, strategic reserve. She served herself, half of what she gave the boys. Owen noticed. He always noticed. "Mom, your portion is 23% less." "Commanders eat last, soldier. It's protocol." "That doesn't sound like protocol. It sounds like you're running out." Maddie smiled. That smile she used when she needed to change the subject. "Less analysis, more chewing. Begin." At the next table, a man was watching. Brandon Cole wore a suit that cost more than Maddie could imagine. The watch on his wrist was his father's inheritance. The only thing his father had left besides impossible expectations. In front of him, an untouched plate, complete steak, side dishes, dessert already ordered. He came to the East Maple Diner every Tuesday and Thursday. Same place, same table, same loneliness. But today he couldn't look at his own plate. He couldn't stop looking at that table. At that mother turning a single plate of pasta into a military operation. Mrs. Marcy, the diner's oldest customer, was sitting at the counter with her eternal coffee. She saw Brandon looking, saw his full plate and her divided one. That man is looking at her like someone who just discovered money can't buy what she has. She spoke loudly. Mrs. Marcy always spoke loudly. It wasn't gossip if everyone could hear it. Brandon pretended he didn't hear. He turned his attention back to his steak. But his eyes betrayed him. "Mom." Theo raised his fork like it was a sword. "Can I make the noise?" "What noise, soldier?" "The explosion noise. When I swallow, it makes the food go down faster." Owen shook his head. "That has no scientific basis. It has younger brother basis. I invented it." Maddie sighed. "Permission granted, but keep it quiet. We're in civilian territory." Theo shoved the pasta in his mouth and went, boom! It was not quiet. 3 customers looked over. An elderly lady nearly dropped her coffee. Brandon felt the corner of his mouth wanting to rise. "Theo?" Owen was timing on an imaginary watch. "You took 4 seconds to chew. The recommended average is 15. I'm above average. You're below, way below." "Soldiers." Maddie raised her hand again. "Focus on the mission. No casualties today." Theo went back to attacking his pasta. And then, disaster. He stabbed the pasta too hard. The fork, covered in sauce, slipped from his small hand. It flew in a perfect arc through the restaurant air and landed directly inside Brandon Cole's water glass. Silence. The entire diner stopped. Theo's eyes went wide. His voice came out in a whisper. "Mom?" The fork deserted to enemy territory. Owen analyzed the trajectory with genuine admiration. 1.3 seconds of flight. Impressive for a regular metal fork. Maddie closed her eyes, took a deep breath, and did the only thing a commander could do. She stood up, straightened her apron, marched to Brandon Cole's table with the dignity of an officer presenting herself to a tribunal. She stopped in front of him, extended her hand. "Sir, I request the return of the deserter equipment. It will be subjected to court-martial." Brandon looked at her, looked at the fork floating in the glass, looked at the 2 boys at the next table, one timing something, the other saluting, and laughed. It wasn't a polite smile. It wasn't that fake business meeting laugh. It was a real laugh. The kind he hadn't given in months. The kind he had forgotten existed. Maddie wasn't expecting that. She expected irritation, disgust, maybe a complaint to the manager. She wasn't expecting him to carefully fish the fork out of the glass. Dry it with his napkin and hand it back to her with a half smile. Soldier rescued. He extended the fork. But tell him next time, aim better. Maddie took the fork. Her fingers brushed against his for half a second. I'll pass on the reprimand, sir. He'll be reclassified for low-risk duties. Brandon laughed again. Twice in 1 minute. Personal record. Before Maddie could return to her table, Brandon called the waiter, spoke quietly, pointed to her table. 2 minutes later, 3 complete plates of pasta arrived at the Clark table. Maddie looked at the plates, looked at Brandon. Her face was a war between pride and gratitude, and pride was losing. Sir, we didn't request reinforcements. It's not reinforcements. Brandon tilted his head. It's recognition for bravery in the field. Owen analyzed Brandon for a full 5 seconds. Mom, he used military language. Does that mean he's an ally or a spy? Theo was already pulling one of the new plates toward him. I vote ally. Spies don't give pasta. That's true, Owen considered. Pasta is an indicator of trust. I'll note it in the report. What report? Maddie frowned. The mental report. I document everything. Brandon watched the scene with something that looked like fascination. Theo attacking the new plate. Owen analyzing every movement. And Maddie trying to maintain her commander composure while clearly not knowing how to react to an act of kindness. She looked at him once more, raised an eyebrow. Thank you for the recognition, but know that we accept it under formal protest. Protest registered. Brandon raised his water glass, still with traces of tomato sauce. But the delivery has already been made. No returns. Maddie almost smiled. Almost. Soldiers thanked the allied civilian and returned to the mission. Thank you, suit man, Theo shouted with his mouth full. Thank you. Owen waved formally. Your caloric contribution will be recorded. Maddie returned to the table, sat down with her sons, and for the first time that day, she didn't have to calculate portions. Brandon watched from afar. He saw the boys attacking the new food, saw Maddie finally eating a complete portion, saw Theo making explosion sounds and Owen timing each forkful. He saw a real family, the kind of thing he never had. And he thought, this woman turned hardship into headquarters, and her sons are the most loyal soldiers I've ever seen. Mrs. Marcy at the counter let out a loud sigh. Goodness gracious, that man looks like someone who just discovered what's been missing in his life. She shook her head and took a sip of her coffee. And he doesn't even know it yet. Brandon looked at his own untouched plate. For the first time in months, he didn't want to leave a place. He ordered another coffee and stayed. 3 complete plates of pasta. Maddie looked at them like a soldier looks at an enemy trap, with calculated suspicion and finger ready on the trigger. Soldiers, hold your positions. Owen and Theo froze with their forks in the air. Theo had sauce dripping down his chin. Owen was already calculating calories. But Mom? Theo whined. The pasta is calling my name. It's saying, Theo, eat me. I'm delicious. Pasta doesn't talk, Theo. Mine does. We have a connection. Maddie ignored him and turned toward Brandon Cole's table. He was still there, pretending to be interested in the dessert menu, as if he wasn't watching her every move. She marched over to him. Sir, I need a tactical explanation for these unsolicited reinforcements. Brandon lowered the menu. The one-sided smile escaped before he could control it. Already told you, recognition for bravery. Bravery isn't paid for with pasta. Then what is it paid with? Maddie opened her mouth, closed it. She had no answer for that. Owen appeared beside her like a calculating ghost. Mom, statistically, when someone offers free food without prior relationship, there are 3 possibilities. He raised his fingers. 1, they want something in return. 2, they're trying to impress. 3, they're an excessively mysterious person who probably watched too many thriller movies. Brandon choked on his water. I'm not that kind of mysterious. That's exactly what someone who watches a lot of thriller movies would say. Owen made notes in an imaginary notebook. I'll maintain observation. Theo appeared on the other side, still chewing. Suit man, do you have a dog? The subject change was so abrupt that Brandon needed 2 seconds to process. No. Cat? No. Fish? No. Hamster? Turtle? Plant? Pet rock? No, and that's a thing? It's a thing, had one. Her name was Rochelle. Theo. Maddie massaged her temples. What does this have to do with... Mom? Theo's eyes went wide like he had discovered a state secret. This soldier lives in completely empty territory. No troops, no allies, Not even a plant to keep him company. The entire restaurant heard. Brandon swallowed hard. The smile was gone. In its place, something that looked like vulnerability crossed his face for half a second before he rearranged his features. That's an accurate observation, soldier. Owen tilted his head. Do you eat alone every day? Owen, Maddie hissed. That's an invasive question. It's a field reconnaissance question, different. Brandon looked at the untouched plate in front of him, at the 3 plates he had sent to them, at the glaring difference between the 2 scenes. Yes, he admitted, his voice lower. I eat alone, same table, same time, for 3 years. Silence. Even Theo stopped chewing. 3 years? The boy frowned. Mister, that's a long time. That's like 1,000 sad meals. 1,095. Owen calculated. If he eats here twice a week. That's statistically depressing, Theo declared, using his brother's word without knowing what it meant. Maddie felt something tighten in her chest, something inconvenient, something she didn't have permission to feel. Theo, Owen, go back to the table. But Mom, now. The boys obeyed, casting curious glances over their shoulders. Maddie stood still. Brandon waited. So, she crossed her arms. What's the real objective? Objective? Men in suits don't hand out pasta for no reason. What's yours? Brandon considered the question, considered lying, considered giving an empty corporate answer, but her eyes left no room for nonsense. Honestly? He leaned forward. I saw you turn a plate of pasta into a military operation. I saw your kids treat the meal like a life-or-death mission. I saw more purpose at that table in 5 minutes than I see in my company in a year. He paused. I don't know what I'm doing. I just know I can't look away. Maddie blinked. This wasn't the answer she expected. You're strange, probably, and rich. Unfortunately. And, she searched for more accusations, and your tie is crooked. Brandon looked down. It's not. Yes, it is. 1 centimeter to the left. Owen would notice. He adjusted his tie anyway. Better? Reasonably, an almost smile. From her this time. Mrs. Marcy at the counter shook her head. Goodness gracious, that man just disarmed the commander with honesty. Low blow. Maddie heard, pretended she didn't. The plates, she pointed to the boys' table, are charity. They're not. Then what are they? Brandon thought for a moment. Investment. In what? In finding out how long a mother can turn hunger into military training. He tilted his head. And how long it takes me to understand how she does it. Maddie had no response, so she did the only thing she could, turned her back and marched back to the table. But on the way, maybe from nervousness, maybe from the pasta on the floor that Theo had dropped, maybe from the universe deciding she needed humiliation, her foot found her own untied shoelace. She tripped. Her hand flew out to balance herself and grabbed the first thing available. The tablecloth from Brandon's table. Everything came with it. Glass, plate, utensils, napkin, the salt shaker nobody uses. Slow motion. Brandon stood up to help. They both moved in the same direction, and their foreheads collided with an audible thunk. Absolute silence. Then, from the boys' table, Mom, you attacked the ally, that's friendly fire. Owen timed it. The disaster lasted 4.7 seconds. New personal record. Maddie had her hand on her forehead, seeing stars. Brandon did too, but he was laughing. Damage report? He asked. Dignity compromised. She groaned. Critical level. Worth it? For you, maybe. I'm gonna have a bump. Goes with the military posture. She wanted to be angry. Really wanted to. But something about that laugh, about that absurd situation, about that man in a suit falling down with her, a laugh escaped, small, contained, but real. Mrs. Marcy raised her coffee cup like a toast. There it is. Now we're talking. Now the drama has really begun. The boys helped pick up the utensils from the floor. Brandon insisted on paying for the damages. Maddie insisted on refusing. They reached an agreement. He would leave as a tip what she refused as payment. That's the same thing, she protested. It's creative accounting, he smiled. My specialty. When Maddie finally got home that night, after putting the boys to bed and hearing Theo retell the story of the attack on the rich man's forehead for the 5th time, she sat in the dark kitchen, alone, thinking. Her phone vibrated. Message from manager Carl. Maddie, I need to talk to you tomorrow. It's serious. She took a deep breath. One day of battle was ending. Another was beginning. And somewhere in the city, Brandon Cole was sitting in the empty living room of an empty mansion, looking at a fork and thinking about the only family that had made him truly laugh in 3 years. 5:47 a.m. Maddie opened her eyes before the alarm. Soldier's habit. The body knew when the war started, even if the mind wanted 5 more minutes of peace. The mental list was already running. Coffee, wake up the boys, check if Theo lost his sneaker again, remind Owen not to correct the teacher in public. Bus at 6:40. School, diner, double shift today, electric bill due, homework, bath, stories, sleep, repeat. She got up and looked at the old backpack hanging on the chair. Peeling leather, stubborn zipper, strap patched 3 times. "Good morning, soldier backpack," she murmured. Another day of mission. The backpack didn't respond. But Maddie liked to think it understood. In the kitchen, the refrigerator made that strange noise again. The noise that meant expensive repair and ignore for another week. She opened the door, assessed the supplies. 1/2 liter of milk, counted eggs, bread expiring tomorrow. Limited resources, mission accepted. She started preparing breakfast. Owen appeared first as always. Hair sticking up, eyes, calculating the margin of error for the bus. "Mom, if we leave at 6:38 we have 2 minutes of slack. But if Theo takes more than 40 seconds to tie his sneaker, the margin drops to 30 seconds. "Good morning to you too, soldier." "Good morning. The weather forecast indicates 20% chance of rain. I suggest a preventive umbrella." "Noted." Theo came down the stairs half asleep, half stumbling, completely dramatic. "Moon, why is the sun still sleepy? If the sun hasn't woken up, why do I have to wake up?" "Because soldiers don't negotiate with the sun." "But what if the sun wants to negotiate with us? Then we'll reconsider. Until then, sit down and eat." Maddie placed the plates on the table, cut the bread into slices, spread butter on 2 of them for the boys. Owen noticed. "Mom, your slice doesn't have butter." "We ran out." "We didn't run out. I saw the container." "Then it's rationing." "Mom?" "Owen?" She used the commander voice. Less analysis, more chewing. He went quiet, but his eyes said, "I understood more than you wanted." Theo, oblivious to everything, was trying to put on his backpack. He pulled the strap was caught on the chair. He pulled harder. The chair came with it. It hit the table. The juice glass tipped over. The liquid flowed in slow motion and landed directly on top of Owen's homework. Dead silence. Owen looked at the soaked paper. His voice came out flat. "Mom, we have casualties." Theo was still holding the chair, eyes wide. "It was the chair. She's a traitor. I saw her move by herself." "Theo, chairs don't." "This one does. She's evil, Mom." Maddie took a deep breath, picked up the wet homework, considered her options. Then she grabbed a pen and wrote in the corner. "Dear teacher, a surprise attack of orange juice compromised this document. I request clemency for Soldier Owen, who completed the mission before the incident. Sincerely, maternal command." Owen read it. Considered. Creative, 8 out of 10. Only 8? The handwriting lost points. Time pressure. Fair. They managed to catch the bus with 12 seconds to spare. Owen recorded it as acceptable margin. Theo waved from the window, shouting, "Bye, house! Bye, traitor chair!" And Maddie went to the diner. The East Maple Diner at 8 in the morning was a controlled symphony of chaos. Shouted orders, balanced plates, impatient customers. Maddie navigated between the tables like a war veteran navigating a minefield. Table 4 wants more coffee. Table 7 complained about the egg. Table 2 asked if we have a vegan option. Say yes, but don't explain what it is. Maddie responded, fill in 3 cups at the same time. And then the door opened. Brandon Cole walked in. Same suit, same posture, same eyes that scanned the room until they found her. Theo would have shouted, "The rich man is back!" But Theo was at school, so only Mrs. Marcy commented, "Well, look who showed up, the pasta investor." Brandon nodded politely and sat at his usual table. Maddie finished her rounds, took a deep breath, marched over to him with the order pad. "The usual? Please. Black coffee, 2 pieces of toast, scrambled eggs without salt." "You remembered." "I remember all the orders," she wrote without looking at him. Professionalism. Of course. Silence. She should leave. She had other tables, other tasks, but something kept her standing there. "Maddie," his voice was different today, softer. "Can I ask you something? Depends on the question." "The boys, how are they?" She frowned. "Why do you want to know?" "Because yesterday, when I asked about your routine, you deflected. You always deflect when the subject is about you." He paused. "So I'm asking about them. Maybe you'll answer." Maddie considered. Was it intrusion? Was it genuine interest? "They're fine." She tucked the notepad in her apron pocket. Owen is obsessed with time statistics. Theo declared war on the kitchen chair. Normal situation. Brandon smiled. And you? She froze. What? You. How are you? Nobody asked that. Customers asked about the order. The manager asked about productivity. The boys asked about snacks. Nobody asked how she was doing. Maddie searched for a commander's response. Didn't find one. I'm on continuous mission. That's not an answer. It's the only one I have. Brandon observed her for 3 seconds that felt like 3 hours. You know you don't have to carry everything alone, right? The air grew dense. Maddie felt something tighten in her throat. Something dangerous. Something she couldn't let escape in the middle of a shift. I know. She lied. Excuse me. Other tables. She walked away too quickly. Brandon watched her go. Didn't press. But when she came back with his order, she found a folded napkin under the cup. Inside, written in the handwriting of someone not used to writing personal things. You don't have to answer. You just need to know that someone asked. Maddie read it again, put it in her apron pocket, and for the rest of the shift, her hand kept going back to that pocket several times, touching the paper like someone touching a good luck charm. At 3 in the afternoon, she picked up the boys from school. Theo came running, backpack flying. Mom, the school chair is also a traitor. She tried to knock me down at lunchtime. Are all chairs traitors now? It's a conspiracy, Mom. Owen came behind, calmer. The teacher accepted the note. She said it was the most creative excuse she's ever seen. Score, 9 out of 10. I went up a point. The handwriting improved in her memory. Maddie laughed, a small, tired laugh, but real. On the way home, Theo pulled her hand. Mom, did the rich man go to the diner today? She hesitated. He did. He likes you. Theo, don't shout that in the... It's love, Mom. I know because I watch movies. Owen considered. Statistically, his repeated presence at the diner indicates above-average interest. I need more data to confirm the romantic hypothesis. Nobody is confirming anything. But Mom, Theo pouted. He asks about us. Normal people don't ask. She stopped walking. He asked about you two? I don't know. Owen, did he ask? Based on the behavior reported by Mom, he showed interest in our well-being. That's significant. Maddie was silent the rest of the way. At the front door before going in, she looked at the sky. The sun was setting. Orange and pink mixed together like a promise of something. Lock tight, soldier door. She murmured to the loose doorknob. Don't let the world in. The door creaked in response, but it didn't close properly. It never did. Brandon Cole had a problem. He didn't know how to help. Not this way. Not without spreadsheets, contracts, and liability clauses. Helping people was something he outsourced to the HR department. Helping a specific family, with faces and names and a boy who declared war on chairs? There was no manual for this. But he was trying. The following Tuesday, he accidentally paid Maddie's bill before she saw it. When she found out, she marched to his table with fire in her eyes. Cole, Clark, you paid my bill. The system must have gotten confused. I am the system. I am the system. Then you're malfunctioning. She almost smiled. Almost. I don't accept charity. It's not charity. It's an administrative error. You're terrible at lying. I know. It's a corporate problem. She crossed her arms. If you do this again, I'll return the amount in coins. All pennies. Noted. But on Thursday, the tip he left was absurd. Maddie found it hidden under the plate, folded into a paper airplane shape. Owen examined it. Mom, this is statistically too generous. Either he's very rich or very interested. Probably both. Owen, put that away. Can I document the amount for future analysis? No. Theo, on the other side of the diner, spotted Brandon leaving. Mom, the rich man is running away. He left the present and ran. That's tactical cowardice. The entire restaurant looked. Brandon, already at the door, pretended not to hear. His side smile betrayed him. The following days turned into a silent game. Brandon appeared by chance during the most difficult hours. When the diner was packed, he would take the table nobody wanted, the one in the corner, near the kitchen, where the noise was worst. He freed up the good tables for real customers. Maddie noticed. Didn't comment, but noticed. Owen created a scoring system to evaluate Brandon. Criterion 1, consistent presence, 10 out of 10. Criterion 2, non-invasive interference, 8 out of 10. Lost points for the secret payment. Criterion 3, ability to interact with children, under analysis. Owen, you can't grade people. Yes, I can. It's scientific methodology. It's invasion of privacy. It's data collection. Different. Theo had a more direct approach. One day he marched up to Brandon and declared, "Rich man, you need to learn how to make an angry soldier face. Yours is too rich looking." Brandon blinked. Angry soldier face? Yeah, like this. Theo made a furious face that looked more like a constipated squirrel. That's intimidating. I know, now you try. Brandon tried. Owen analyzed from a distance. No, not like that. You look constipated. Constipated? That's when a person can't. I know what it is. Brandon adjusted his expression. Better? Theo tilted his head. Now you look constipated and angry. Is that good? It's confusing. I'll give you 6 out of 10. Maddie watched from afar, pretending to clean the same table for 5 minutes. Something warm was spreading in her chest. Something inconvenient. She remembered Ryan, the ex-husband, the man who promised to stay, who swore they'd be a family, who disappeared leaving debts and a wedding ring that wasn't even real gold. Maddie squeezed the cleaning cloth. Handsome men making promises were the universe's specialty in destroying her. Not again. But then, Brandon decided that helping meant cooking. Nobody knows why. Maybe he wanted to impress, maybe he wanted to be useful, maybe his judgment just failed when Maddie was around. The fact is, he went into the diner's kitchen just to see how it worked, and decided to make an omelet. "Sir, this area is restricted." The cook tried to warn. "Just an omelet. I saw it on video. Seems simple." It wasn't simple. Brandon put oil in the pan, a lot of oil, the equivalent of a small lake. He turned on the heat, on high. The oil started smoking. "Is this normal?" he asked. "Sir, maybe it's better to." A flame appeared. Brandon, with an instinct that clearly didn't come from culinary experience, threw water. The water met the hot oil. The oil reacted like hot oil always reacts. It exploded in an epic mess of smoke and flames. The fire grew. Smoke spread. The fire alarm went off. Customers started evacuating. Mrs. Marcy left complaining she hadn't even finished her coffee. A man tried to take his plate with him. Theo, who was in the employee area waiting for his mom, saw the commotion. "Emergency drill!" he shouted, way too excited for the situation. "Everybody evacuate! This is not a drill. Or is it? Mom, is it a drill?" Owen ran after him, mental stopwatch activated. Evacuation time 32 seconds, acceptable efficiency. Maddie crossed through the smoke to the kitchen and found Brandon, covered in soot, hair singed in one corner, holding a spatula that had partially melted, the $3,000 suit destroyed forever. Around him, the kitchen looked like a war zone. Fallen pans, oil on the ceiling, the already empty fire extinguisher on the floor. Brandon began, voice hoarse from the smoke. "I wanted to help." Maddie looked at him, looked at the kitchen, looked at the melted spatula, and laughed. It wasn't a polite laugh. It was a belly laugh. The kind that comes from deep inside, that makes your ribs hurt, that makes tears stream down. "You." She tried to breathe. "You turned the kitchen into a disaster, trying to make an omelet?" "Technically, it was the oil that you almost set the diner on fire. I wanted to do something useful." "Brandon," she wiped her tears, still laughing. "You're the worst cook I've ever seen, and I've seen Theo try to make cereal." "Theo burned cereal?" "He managed to burn milk. Don't ask me how." Brandon started laughing too. A tired laugh covered in soot, but genuine. "I should have stuck with pasta. You should have stayed at your table." "Probably." They looked at each other, in the middle of the destroyed kitchen, covered in ash, ridiculous, and something changed. Maddie felt it. That tightening in her chest got stronger, more dangerous. Brandon felt it too. The way her smile, a real one, not the commander one, made him want to blow up more kitchens just to see it again. "Maddie?" he started. But the kitchen door opened. Carl Benson, the manager, stopped at the entrance, looked at Brandon, looked at Maddie, looked at the destruction. His face turned red, then purple. "Maddie?" His voice was ice. "My office. Now." Maddie's smile withered. Her stomach dropped. Brandon saw the fear cross her eyes. A fear that wasn't about fire or smoke. It was about losing the job that fed her children. Because of him. "Wait." Brandon stepped forward. "This was Now, Maddie," Carl interrupted, already turning his back. Maddie looked at Brandon one last time. In her eyes, a clear message. "You're a general from another war, Brandon. This one is mine." And she followed Carl. Alone. Carl Benson's office was too small for his ego. Framed certificates covered the walls, most from online courses about assertive leadership and high-performance management. A plaque on the desk said, "The boss is always right," which Maddie thought was a joke, but it probably wasn't. Carl sat behind the desk, adjusted his tie, cleared his throat 3 times, the ritual of someone about to give a rehearsed speech. "Maddie, sit down." She didn't sit. "I prefer to stand, sir." That wasn't an invitation, it was an order. Maddie sat down, but maintained military posture. Carl wouldn't win the psychological battle. "Maddie," he interlaced his fingers, "we need to talk about behavior." "Behavior, sir?" "Your behavior. And your children's." She felt her blood rise but kept her voice neutral. "My children don't work here, but they're here, frequently, and that," he paused dramatically, "looks bad. They stay in the employee area, always supervised. Mrs. Marcy keeps an eye on them when I can't. They don't cause problems. They cause problems for the establishment's image." Maddie squeezed her hands on her knees. "With all due respect, sir, my children are well-behaved." "Well-behaved?" Carl let out a short laugh. "The younger one shouts announcements in the dining area. The older one times everything like he's some kind of robot. And you," he pointed at her, "you share plates in front of customers." Maddie's stomach dropped. "That happened once." "Once is enough. Quality customers don't want to see that kind of thing." He leaned forward. "This restaurant has standards, Maddie, and you're dragging them down." She wanted to respond, wanted to scream, wanted to say she worked more hours than any other employee, that she never called in sick, that she never complained even when Carl changed shifts without notice. But the words wouldn't come out, because behind the anger, there was fear. Real fear. Of losing the job, of not being able to pay the electric bill, of having to explain to Owen and Theo why dinner would be smaller this week. Carl continued, "Maybe it's time to consider whether this environment is suitable for someone in your situation." "My situation? Single mother? 2 kids, limited resources." He shrugged as if discussing the weather. "It's not personal, Maddie. It's compatibility analysis." She felt a tear wanting to escape. She forced it back. Commanders didn't cry during interrogation. On the other side of the door, hidden behind the counter, Owen and Theo were hearing everything. Owen had a serious face, concentrated, mentally documenting every word. Theo had his fists clenched. The extreme angry face he'd been practicing so much was finally being used for real. "Owen," Theo whispered, "that man is being mean to Mom." "I know. We need to do something." "I know." "Like what?" Owen thought for 3 seconds. "Tactical intervention." Before Owen could explain what that meant, Theo had already left the hiding spot. He marched to the office door, opened it without knocking, and entered like a little general invading enemy territory. "Mister?" Carl almost fell off his chair. "What? How did you get in here?" "Through the door." Theo crossed his arms. "Mister, do you know my mom is the strongest person in the world?" What?" "She wakes up before the sun. She makes coffee while the coffee is still sleepy. She carries us the backpack, the lunch, and still smiles on the bus." Theo stepped forward. "Do you do that?" Carl was speechless. Owen appeared beside his brother, much calmer but equally firm. "Sir, statistically, my mother works 847% more than the average employee at this establishment. That doesn't make mathematical sense. It makes emotional sense, which is more important." Maddie stood up. "Boys, you shouldn't. Mom." Theo turned to her with determined eyes. "We heard him being mean, and mean people need to know they're mean." "Theo?" "It's true." Owen calculated. Carl tried to regain control. "This is completely inappropriate. Maddie, control your..." He took a step back. He didn't see the janitor's bucket behind him. His foot found the bucket. The bucket showed no mercy. Carl lost his balance. His arms spun like windmills. His tie, the one he had adjusted so carefully, flew to the side, and he fell, sitting down, into the bucket. The bucket was the wrong size, too small to sit in, too big to escape from. Carl was stuck, legs in the air, dignity in tatters. Theo tilted his head. "Mister, do you need reinforcements? I can call someone." Owen timed it. Complete fall in 2.1 seconds. Disastrous execution. The entire diner was watching now. Employees, customers. Mrs. Marcy with her phone in hand, clearly recording. Carl, red with embarrassment, tried to get up. The bucket came with him. He fell again. That's when Brandon appeared at the door. He had changed out of the destroyed suit for a dress shirt. He still smelled faintly of smoke, but his eyes were cold as ice when they looked at Carl. Sorry to interrupt. His voice was too calm. But this isn't going to stay like this. Maddie looked at him, surprised, vulnerable, grateful. Carl finally managed to free himself from the bucket. He stood up, straightening his wrinkled clothes. And you are who exactly? Another customer wanting to show off? Brandon smiled. But it wasn't a friendly smile. It was the smile of someone who had just won the game before showing their cards. I'm Brandon Cole. He took a card from his pocket. Majority investor in this franchise, and you. He looked Carl up and down. You just made a very big mistake. Absolute silence. Theo tugged at Maddie's sleeve and whispered, Mom, is the rich man like a superhero in a suit? Owen answered for her. Technically, he's an investor, but the dramatic effect is similar. Carl turned white, and Maddie, for the first time that day, breathed. The card in Brandon's hand gleamed under the fluorescent light. Cole Investments, CEO and founder. Carl read it 3 times, as if the words would change if he blinked. This is impossible. I know the investors, for years. Subsidiary holding company. Brandon put the card away. Corporate structure allows for anonymity when needed. I like anonymity. It lets me see how things really work. But you eat here like a regular customer. With that plate without salt. Scrambled eggs. No salt. 2 pieces of toast. Black coffee. Brandon tilted his head. It's interesting how you know my order, but don't know how your most dedicated employee is treated. Carl swallowed hard. Jerry and Miles, the employees who always agreed with Carl, appeared at the door like rats coming out of the sewer. Boss, what's going on? Jerry. Carl pointed at Brandon. Explained to him that I'm an excellent manager. Jerry opened his mouth, closed it, looked at Brandon, looked at Carl. He's an excellent manager. His voice came out weak. When he's not yelling at everyone, Jerry, Miles whispered, too loud as always. Jerry, you're making it worse, much worse. I'm trying to help. It's not working. I know. Brandon observed the scene with a raised eyebrow. He turned his attention back to Carl. You know, I spent weeks observing this diner. I saw employees working double shifts. I saw customers being poorly served. I saw you. He paused, adjusting your tie more than managing. Carl adjusted his tie instinctively, stopped mid-motion. I have certificates. Certificates from online courses. Brandon pointed at the wall. Assertive leadership, completed in 3 hours. High-performance management, 4 hours. None of them teach how to treat people. That's unfair. Unfair is what you did to her. Brandon looked at Maddie. In front of her children. Maddie was still standing there, processing. The boys beside her, holding her hands. Theo asked loudly, Mom, is the rich man going to fire the mean man? Theo, be quiet. But I want to know. Getting fired seems fun. It's not fun, Theo. Can it be a little bit? Owen intervened. Technically, termination is an administrative process that involves contract rescission, calculation of severance pay, and… Owen. Maddie massaged her temples. This isn't the time for explanations. Carl took advantage of the distraction to try to recover some dignity. Mr. Cole, I'm sure we can resolve this professionally. There was a misunderstanding. There was no misunderstanding. Brandon cut in. I heard everything. You said she drags the standards down. That her children look bad. That her situation is incompatible with the environment. Each word fell like a sentence. Carl ran out of arguments. He looked around searching for allies. Jerry and Miles had disappeared. Mrs. Marcy was still filming. The other employees were pretending to clean things that were already clean. Carl tried. I was merely expressing legitimate concerns about a mother who shares food with her children because she can't afford separate plates. Brandon stepped forward. About children who stay at the diner because she doesn't have a babysitter. About a woman who works more than anyone here and is still treated like a problem. Maddie felt her eyes burning. Someone was fighting for her. For the first time in years, someone was fighting for her. Carl made one last attempt. With all due respect, Mr. Cole, your personal affections may be clouding your professional judgment. Brandon laughed. A short laugh, without humor. My affections have nothing to do with this. My judgment is perfectly clear. He turned to Maddie. Can I request access to the HR reports? Yes. Maddie didn't understand. Great. Because I have suspicions that his management will reveal some interesting inconsistencies. Carl turned green. That's not. You can't just… He took a step back. The floor cloth was there, the same cloth that should have been in the closet. Carl stepped on it. The cloth slipped. Carl tried to grab onto something. Anything. His hand found the tablecloth from the table beside him. The tablecloth came with it. The salt shaker, the pepper shaker, the napkin holder, the sugar bowl. Everything collapsed in a cascade. Carl fell flat on his back with an audible thump. The salt shaker rolled across the floor and stopped exactly in Theo's hand. Theo looked at the salt shaker, looked at Carl on the floor, and with the genuine innocence of a 5-year-old, "Mister, do you want salt? Looks like you need some spice in your life." Silence. Then Mrs. Marcy started laughing. The employees started laughing. Even some customers started laughing. Carl, humiliated, defeated, tried to stand up with what remained of his dignity. Not much remained. Brandon offered his hand to help him. "Consider this a preview of what's coming, Carl. Monday, central office. We'll review your management together." Carl took the hand, got up, didn't look at anyone, and left the diner with his tail between his legs, literally stumbling one more time at the door. When the door closed, silence took over. Then Theo asked, "Mom, did we win?" Maddie looked at Brandon, at her sons, at the diner full of people who had watched everything. I think so, soldier." "Yay, victory! Total victory!" Owen considered. "Technically, it's a partial victory. The main conflict still requires formal resolution at the upper administrative level." "Owen, let us celebrate." "Fair. Celebration authorized for," he calculated, 10 minutes. Brandon approached Maddie, his voice lowered. "Are you okay?" "Aye." She searched for words, didn't find them. "Why did you do that?" "Because he was wrong, and you deserved someone on your side." She swallowed hard. "I didn't ask for help." "I know, you never do." He paused, but sometimes help shows up anyway. Her eyes were watery. She didn't try to hide it this time. "Brandon, I don't know what to say." "You don't have to say anything." Theo tugged at Brandon's sleeve and asked too loudly, "Brandon, now that you saved Mom, are you going to be our dad?" The air stopped. Maddie froze. Brandon looked at the boy, at Maddie, at Owen, who was clearly calculating probabilities. And carefully, Brandon knelt down to Theo's height. "I don't know, soldier. That depends on a lot of things." "Like what?" "Like authorization from the commander." He looked at Maddie. "And if she'll accept reinforcements." Maddie felt her heart race. Mrs. Marcy put her phone away and sighed. "Goodness gracious, someone take this man off the market before I try it myself." Owen mentally noted, "Rich man's score updated, 9.2 out of 10. And Theo, as always, summed it up. "Mom, he has a high score. We have to keep him." Maddie laughed through tears, and for the first time she didn't say no. The sun was setting when they left the diner. Orange, pink, gold, as if the sky was trying to make up for the crazy day they had. "May I walk you home?" Brandon asked, hands in his pockets like a nervous teenager. Owen analyzed the request. "This requires authorization from the commander." Everyone looked at Maddie. She hesitated. 1,000 reasons to say no ran through her head. Pride, fear, self-preservation. But Theo's eyes were so hopeful, and Owen had stopped calculating to wait for the answer. "Authorization." She took a deep breath. "Granted." Theo celebrated with a jump. "Group mission, troop formation." The walk to Maddie's house was 15 minutes. Theo turned it into 30. He stopped every half block to show something extremely important to Brandon. "Look, this is the tree Owen climbed and fell from. He cried, but he said it was allergies." "It wasn't crying. It was involuntary physiological response." "It was crying, Owen." Brandon laughed. "And this tree? Does it have a story too?" "This is where a cat got stuck once, and the firefighters came. Theo said he was going to help, but he stayed on the ground screaming. I was giving moral support." Maddie walked a little behind, observing. Brandon between the two boys, listening to every absurd story as if it were the most fascinating thing in the world. When was the last time someone had given them attention like this? When was the last time someone had wanted to? "Mom," Theo called. "Tell Brandon about the soldier rules." "Theo, he doesn't need to know." "I want to know." Brandon looked at her. "If it's not intrusive." Owen took the lead, as he always did when the subject was rules and protocols. Rule 1, never cry on the battlefield. Rule 2, crying in secret is okay, but only if nobody sees. Rule 3, always share the last cookie. Brandon nodded, serious. "And if there's no cookie?" Theo responded as if it were obvious. "Then we imagine the cookie. Imaginary cookie has no calories." "That's brilliant." I know, I invented it. You didn't invent it. Owen corrected. Mom invented it when you cried because the real cookies ran out. But I perfected it. Imaginary chocolate cookie was my idea. They reached Maddie's house when the sun had already hidden half its body on the horizon. Brandon stopped, looked. The house was small, paint peeling in the corners, garden that needed care, wooden fence with some slats missing, a rusty bicycle leaning against the porch, but in the windows, floral curtains. On the door, a doormat that said, Clark Headquarters. On the eave, a wind chime made of bottle caps, clearly children's crafts. Love in every imperfect detail. Maddie began, defensive by reflex. It's small, but it's perfect, Brandon said, his voice low. It looks like a home. She blinked. You haven't seen inside. I don't need to. I can already see from the door. Theo ran to the entrance. Come on, Brandon. I'll show you my room. There's an Iron Man poster that Mom taped up because the wall can't hold nails. Owen added, the wall is old plaster, structurally compromised for metal supports. He's been talking like that since he watched a documentary about construction. Maddie explained. Documentaries are educational, Owen defended. At the door, Maddie went to open it. She turned the doorknob. The doorknob came off in her hand. For the 1000th time this year, Maddie lost her balance. Brandon caught her by the arm, instinct, reflex, or maybe desire. She didn't fall, but she was close. Very close. Too close. Their eyes met. The air grew dense. The world seemed to pause. His hand was still on her arm. Her hand still held the broken doorknob. And between them, 3.7 centimeters of distance. Owen calculated, mentally, silently. Theo wasn't silent. Are Mom and the rich man going to kiss? Maddie and Brandon separated as if they'd been shocked. No, Maddie said, red-faced. We weren't, Brandon tried. Owen noted, distance of 3.7 centimeters. Technically almost contact. Theo started marching around them. Love confirmed. Love confirmed. I knew it was love. Theo, get inside, Maddie hissed. But I want to see the kiss. There's not going to be a kiss. Can there be one later? Theo. The boy marched inside, still singing Love Confirmed like a war anthem. Owen followed, stopping at the door for one last observation. Mom, statistically, repeated denial of romantic feelings indicates their presence. I'll document it. And he disappeared inside the house. Silence. Maddie and Brandon on the porch, alone, the sun almost completely hidden now. Maddie held the broken doorknob like an anchor. Sorry about this. About what? The doorknob or Theo? Both. Everything. My whole life being a constant disaster. Brandon smiled, that one-sided smile. I like the disaster. She didn't know what to say. He didn't push either. I should go, he said quietly. Yeah, probably. But neither of them moved. And then Theo appeared in the window. Brandon, if you're going to be our dad, can we get a dog? The moment broke. Maddie closed her eyes, mortified. Brandon laughed. We'll talk about that, soldier. That's a yes. It's not a yes, Theo, but it's not a no either. Brandon turned to go, took 2 steps, stopped. Maddie? Yes? He didn't look back. Thank you for letting me walk with you. You're welcome. And Maddie? Yes? The doorknob. I can fix it, if you'll let me. She looked at the broken piece in her hand, at the door that never closed properly, at all the small things she had been carrying alone for years. Maybe, was all she could say. Brandon nodded and left. Maddie stayed on the porch until he disappeared around the corner. Then she went inside, leaned her back against the door, and let the air out slowly. Her heart was pounding, her hands were trembling, and something she had buried deep, hope, fear, desire, was stirring back to the surface. It was terrifying and wonderful and completely out of control. Mom? Owen's voice came from the living room. You've been standing there for 47 seconds. Is everything okay? Yeah, honey, I'm just thinking. About Brandon? She didn't need to. Owen already knew. Maddie woke up in a panic at 4:17 a.m. Not because of the alarm, because of fear. What was she doing? She lay staring at the dark ceiling, heart pounding. Scenes from the day before playing on loop. Brandon defending her. Brandon walking with the boys. Brandon holding her arm when the doorknob broke. 3.7 centimeters. Owen had measured it mentally. Of course he had. Maddie squeezed her eyes shut. Ryan had been kind at the beginning too. Ryan had promised things too. Ryan had also made her believe she deserved something good. And then, debts, lies, a wedding ring that wasn't even real gold. 2 boys without a father and a hospital bill she was still paying off. Maddie sat up in bed. No, not again. She couldn't risk it. Not with her children's hearts at stake. Theo was already calling Brandon almost dad. Owen was updating daily scores. Both of them were getting attached to a man who could disappear at any moment. Because everyone disappeared. Always. Maddie made a decision in the darkness of that room. She was going to pull away. Create distance. Protect the troops. It was tactical. It was survival. It was the only thing she knew how to do. At the diner, she implemented the plan. When Brandon came in, 9:15 usual table, she pretended not to see. She sent Jerry to serve him. But you always serve his table. Jerry frowned. Not today, I'm busy. With what? With things. Just go. Brandon waited. He watched Maddie moving around the diner as if he were invisible. Noticed that she avoided looking in his direction, that her hands gripped the tray harder than necessary. Something had changed. He ordered the usual. Ate without tasting anything. Left a tip. Left without being able to talk to her. The next day, the same thing. And the next. And the next. A week passed. The boys didn't understand. Mom, why doesn't Brandon come to our table anymore? Theo asked one night while she was making his bed. He comes to the diner, soldier, just not to our table. But why? Because. She searched for an explanation that wasn't a lie. Because sometimes people need space. He doesn't need space. He needs us, Theo. We made him laugh, Mom. You said he hadn't laughed in a long time, and now he laughs. Why would we take his laugh away? Maddie felt her chest tighten. Sleep, soldier. Mission tomorrow. But Theo didn't fall asleep easily. Neither did Maddie. Owen was more direct, as always. Mom, you're avoiding Brandon. I'm not. Statistically, you changed direction 17 times this week when he approached. That indicates avoidance behavior. Owen, you're scared. She stopped. What? You're scared, he repeated, voice calm but eyes too serious for 7 years old. You're scared he'll leave like Dad did. Silence. Maddie swallowed hard. Owen, that's complicated. I know. But avoiding the problem doesn't solve the problem. You said that yourself when I didn't want to take the math test. That's different. It's the same logic, different execution. She had no answer. At the diner, Brandon tried one last time. Maddie was serving coffee when he approached. Maddie. She kept filling cups. Maddie, please. I'm working. You're avoiding me. I'm busy. For a week? She finally looked at him, her eyes tired, the posture of someone building walls. Brandon, I appreciate everything you did. Carl, the defense, the walk with the boys, but you're a general from another war. Mine doesn't need reinforcements. He stood still, processing. Did I do something wrong? You did everything right, she answered quietly. That's the problem. I don't understand. I know you don't. She started to walk away, and I can't explain. Brandon held her arm, gently, without force. Maddie, look at me. She looked, and he saw. He saw the fear, the old wound, the scar that never healed properly. Who hurt you? He asked quietly. She pulled her arm away. It doesn't matter. It matters to me. It shouldn't. She stepped back. You don't know me. You don't know my history. You don't know what. Then tell me. No. Why? Because I can't do this again. Her voice rose without meaning to. Some customers looked over. She lowered her tone. I can't let my kids get attached to someone who's going to leave. Everyone leaves, Brandon. Everyone. Silence. Brandon understood. It wasn't about him. It was about the wound she carried. Okay, he said slowly. I'll respect that. She blinked, surprised. You will? I will. If that's what you need, I'll give you space. Her relief lasted half a second. Then came the emptiness. Brandon turned to go. But Maddie? She looked. I'm not him. His eyes were firm, and I'm going to prove it. He left. Maddie stood in the middle of the diner, coffee pot in hand, heart cracked. Mrs. Marcy at the counter shook her head. Girl, you just pushed away the best thing that's come into your life. I know, Maddie whispered. And you're going to leave it like this? She didn't answer. That night, after the boys fell asleep, Maddie heard Theo crying softly. She went into the room, sat on the bed, stroked his hair. Hey, soldier, what's wrong? Brandon, Theo sniffled. Did he leave because we're poor? Maddie's heart broke. No, sweetheart, that's not why. Then why? She took a deep breath. Because Mommy is scared to believe in good things. Theo looked at her with those 5-year-old eyes that saw more than they should. But what if the good thing is real? Maddie had no answer. She hugged him tight. And somewhere in the city, Brandon Cole was sitting in the empty living room of an empty mansion, looking at a fork that wasn't his. The fork that looked like the deserter. The fork that had flown from a family's table into his glass of loneliness. He kept that fork in his thoughts, and decided he was going to do something big. Something that would prove he wasn't going to leave. Something that would change everything. Brandon spent 3 days without showing up at the diner. Not because he gave up, because he was planning. Spreadsheets open on his laptop, contracts under review, calls to lawyers, architects, investors. The mansion's office, usually empty and sterile, was covered in papers and sticky notes. He was going to do this right. He didn't want to give Maddie money. That would hurt her pride. He knew her well enough to know that charity would destroy her more than help her. He wanted to give her opportunity. The difference was everything. But he needed more information. He needed to understand what she really wanted, not what he thought she needed. And that's when Owen and Theo came into the picture. Brandon showed up at the school exit on a weekday. The outdoor courtyard was full of parents picking up their children. He blended into the crowd, waiting on the public sidewalk where dozens of families gathered. Owen noticed first. Of course. Theo, Brandon is over there. Where? Theo turned in all directions. I don't see him. Black car, 2 meters to the right of the lamppost. Oh, I see him. Theo waved frantically. Brandon, you're back. Brandon got out of the car, hands in his pockets. Soldiers, I need a secret meeting. Owen narrowed his eyes. What's the nature of the mission? Operation Surprise for Commander. Theo's eyes went wide. A surprise for Mom? I love surprises. But it has to be a secret. Can you keep a secret? Silence. Owen and Theo looked at each other. Technically, Owen began. I'm really good at secrets, Theo declared. Like really good. Nobody ever finds out anything I know. Owen sighed. He told his whole class that Mom had bought his birthday present. That was excitement. It's not the same thing. Brandon knelt down to their height. Boys, this is important. I want to do something special for your mom. But I need to know, does she have any dream? Something she always wanted to do but never could. The boys thought. Owen spoke first. She has a notebook. Notebook. Hidden in the kitchen cabinet, behind the old pots. What's in this notebook? Recipes. Theo answered. She writes recipes of things she invents and draws pretty dishes, and there are some words in the corner like, for when I have my restaurant. Owen completed. She thinks we don't know, but I saw it once when she thought we were asleep. Brandon felt something tighten in his chest. Restaurant. She dreamed of having a restaurant. Does she talk about it? Never. Owen shook his head. I think she's embarrassed or scared or both. Why? Because dreams cost money. Owen's voice was too serious for 7 years old. And we don't have much. Brandon nodded slowly. Thank you, soldiers. You've helped me a lot. What's the plan? Theo was jumping with excitement. Are you going to give her a restaurant? Like a Christmas present? But it's not Christmas yet. Can it be a not Christmas present? Something like that. Brandon smiled. But I need you as secret agents. Can you do it? We can, Theo saluted. I'll try to minimize information leaks. Owen said, looking at his brother with suspicion. Brandon spent nights refining the plan. The new diner unit was already under construction. Bigger, more modern, better location. And what if this unit had a partner? Not charity. Partnership. Not a gift. Opportunity. He rehearsed the speech with the boys over video call. Maddie, I know you have pride, but this isn't help. It's recognition. Your recipes, your dedication. Pause. Owen raised his hand. You said opportunity 3 times. I did? Redundancy. Less corporate, more emotion. Theo added, and your face looks weird, like you swallowed a lemon. How should my face look? Like someone who loves Mom. Theo made an exaggerated expression. Like this. Brandon laughed. You two are tough critics. We're efficient. Owen corrected. Everything was ready. And then Maddie came home early. The boys were in the backyard with Brandon, final review of the plan. Theo saw his mom coming in, ran to her, opened his mouth. Owen threw himself on top of him, covering his mouth with his hand. Meth! He didn't say anything, Owen shouted. Theo struggled, knocked over the flower vase. Owen slipped in the water. They both rolled on the ground. Maddie looked at the scene, at Brandon poorly hidden behind the bush. What's going on here? Theo, with his mouth covered. Paff! Surprise meth! Brandon, defeated, came out from behind the bush. I can explain. Then explain. Not now, but soon. He held her gaze. Do you trust me? Maddie didn't say yes, but she didn't say no either. That night, an invitation arrived. Grand opening of the new East Maple Diner, special presents requested. Maddie looked at her sons. What do you know about this? Theo, trying to look innocent. Nothing. Zero. Absolutely nothing. Why do you ask? I don't know anything. What's an invitation? Owen closed his eyes in defeat. Meanwhile, at the diner, Mrs. Marcy found Maddie at the end of her shift. You look like someone who lost something important. I didn't lose it. Maddie was cleaning the same table for 5 minutes. I pushed it away. And why did you do that? Silence. Because things that are too good scare me. Mrs. Marcy laughed softly. Dear, all of life is scary. At least be scared with someone by your side. Maddie stopped cleaning, looked at Brandon's empty table, at the spot where he sat every Tuesday and Thursday, at the space that now seemed bigger, colder, more wrong. Mrs. Marcy? Yes? How do you know when it's worth the risk? The old lady smiled. When the fear of losing is greater than the fear of trying. Madiko's words. And that night, for the first time in weeks, she dreamed about restaurants, about recipe notebooks, about a man in a suit who smiled on one side, and about the possibility, terrifying and wonderful, that maybe, just maybe, she deserved something good. The new East Maple Diner was glowing. Exposed brick walls, warm lighting, solid wood tables, a counter that seemed to embrace the customers, pictures on the walls with old photos of the neighborhood, memories turned into decoration. Maddie stopped at the entrance, the boys on each side, unable to process. This is beautiful. It's huge. Theo spun around. Mom, it fits like 1,000 people in here. Approximately 120, Owen calculated. But Theo's perception is emotionally correct. The place was full. Employees from the old diner, regular customers, investors in suits, curious neighbors. A small stage had been set up in the back, with a microphone and a banner still covered by a curtain. Carl Benson circulated among the guests as if he were the owner of the event. Technically, he was still on the roster. Leave for evaluation, the lawyers said. But Carl interpreted that as, I'm going to get out of this. After all, he had escaped difficult situations before. Why would this one be different? Of course, it was my vision that transformed all of this, he said to anyone who would listen. Years of dedication, management excellence, the new diner is the result of my tireless work. Jerry and Miles followed behind, agreeing mechanically. It's true, Jerry confirmed. He worked hard, very hard, Miles added without conviction. Maddie avoided Carl. She looked for Brandon in the crowd. She found him near the stage, talking to lawyers. He wore a dark suit but no tie, as if he had given up on formalities at the last minute. When he saw Maddie, his eyes changed. She knew that look now. It made her stomach flip every time. You came, he said, approaching. The invitation said, special presents requested. I thought it would be rude to refuse. And the soldiers, present and ready for action, Theo saluted. Owen waved formally. Brandon? Maddie lowered her voice. What's happening? You'll see. He smiled, that one-sided smile. Trust me. She hesitated. I'm still deciding. There. The lights dimmed. Someone called for attention. Brandon went up to the stage. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for being here. The crowd went silent. Today we're inaugurating a new phase of the East Maple Diner. But before talking about the future, I need to talk about the past. Carl puffed out his chest, preparing to be praised. Over the past few months, I conducted an internal audit on the management of this franchise. Carl's chest deflated. I found some inconsistencies. Brandon pulled out a folder from the podium. Diversion of resources for personal expenses, employee reports about inappropriate treatment, complaints filed without investigation. He looked directly at Carl, and a systematic pattern of humiliating employees who had no power to respond. The silence was heavy. Carl turned green. This is absurd. These are lies. I have certificates. Certificates don't replace character. Brandon interrupted. And documents don't lie. Theo tugged at Maddie's sleeve. Mom, is this the part where the villain falls? Shh, Theo. But I want to see the fall. You promised villains always fall. I didn't promise. Yes, you did. In the story of the big bad wolf, Carl tried to recover the narrative. Mr. Cole, I'm sure we can resolve this privately. There's no need to. There is a need, Brandon cut in, because the people you hurt deserve to see that there are consequences. He looked at Maddie in the audience. She understood. This was for her. Carl, desperate, grabbed the backup microphone. "This is persecution. I'm being attacked by a—" he searched for words. "By a man who is clearly romantically involved with an employee. This is a conflict of interest." The crowd murmured. Brandon didn't waver. "My personal involvement doesn't change the numbers in the documents, and even if it did," he paused, "I would be proud to stand beside someone like her." Maddie felt her face heat up. Mrs. Marcy, somewhere in the audience, shouted, "That's right, say more." Carl, realizing he was losing, tried one last move. He straightened his tie, assumed the pose of an unjustly victimized man. "Very well, if that's how you want it." He walked toward the exit. "I'm going to consult my lawyers. You'll be hearing." He didn't finish the sentence because he didn't see the banner curtain. The curtain was partially fallen, the result of a rushed installation. Carl's foot found the fabric. The fabric didn't let go. Carl tripped, tried to balance himself, grabbed the entire curtain. The curtain gave way and revealed the banner that was supposed to be a surprise. Maddie Clark, new partner. In golden letters, 3 meters tall. Carl, still falling, read the words in the air. "Her?" His cry of indignation was interrupted by gravity. He fell off the stage, perfect landing, on top of the opening day cake. 3 tiers of frosting, elaborate decoration, candied fruits, all destroyed under Carl Benson's body. Absolute silence. Then Theo shouted, "The villain fell in the cake? This is better than a movie." Owen timed it. Fall time, 1.8 seconds. The cake cushioned the impact by approximately 40%. Carl, covered in frosting, tried to get up, slipped, fell again. Jerry and Miles ran to help. Jerry slipped on the frosting. Miles tripped over Jerry. All 3 ended up piled on top of the cake remains. Mrs. Marcy started applauding. "Best opening I've ever seen, and I saw the supermarket one in '87 when the mayor fell into the ball pit." The audience started laughing, then applauding, then laughing more. Carl, humiliated beyond repair, finally managed to stand up. Frosting was dripping off his suit. A cherry was stuck in his hair. He looked around, at the people laughing, at Brandon on the stage, at the banner with Maddie's name, and something in him broke, not from anger, from something else. His voice came out small. "I just wanted to be respected." The laughter faded. Carl looked at his own hands, covered in sugar. 30 years at this company. 30 years trying to prove I was good enough, and never. He swallowed hard. "I never did." Silence. For a moment, Carl wasn't the villainess. He was just a tired man, covered in cake, admitting he had failed. Brandon came down from the stage, stopped in front of Carl. "The termination still stands," he said quietly. "But if you want help finding something different, I can make some calls." Carl looked at him, surprised. "Why?" "Because everyone deserves a second chance, even those who didn't offer one." Carl didn't respond, but he nodded slightly and left, this time without tripping. Jerry and Miles went after him, still picking frosting off their clothes. When the door closed, Brandon returned to the stage. "Well," he cleared his throat, "that was unexpected." Nervous laughter. "But the main surprise hasn't been explained yet." He looked at Maddie. "Maddie Clark, can you come up here?" She froze. "What?" Theo pushed her. "Go, Mom. It's your turn," Owen added. "Going up to the stage presents no significant physical risks, unless you trip, but you trip everywhere." "Thanks for the confidence, Owen." Maddie went up to the stage on trembling legs. Brandon was waiting. The banner behind them glowed. "Maddie," he began, "I discovered something about you." She swallowed hard. "What?" "You have a notebook, hidden behind the old pots, with recipes, and a dream you never told anyone." Tears started forming in her eyes. "How did you?" "Secret agents." He pointed to Owen and Theo in the audience. "Not very secret, actually." Theo waved proudly. "I kept the secret really well." Owen sighed. Brandon continued. "This isn't charity, Maddie. It's not a gift. It's partnership. Your recipes, your dedication, your dream of having a restaurant. I want to be your partner in this." He paused. "You don't have to answer now. Just think about it." Maddie looked at the banner, at the packed diner, at her sons in the audience, eyes shining, at Brandon, waiting. Theo shouted, "Mom, say yes! Say yes! Say yes!" Owen added, "Statistically, this is an exceptional offer. Refusing would be irrational." Mrs. Marcy, "Say yes already, girl. The cake is gone anyway." Maddie laughed through tears. She looked at Brandon. "I don't know what to say." "Say what you feel." She took a deep breath. "I feel terrified. That's normal. And that you're the most stubborn person I've ever met. Also normal. And that, she swallowed back tears, and that maybe I deserve something good. Brandon smiled. You do, you always have. He extended his hand. She looked at the hand, at him, at everything that meant, and accepted. Maddie was holding Brandon's hand on the stage. The entire diner was watching. She should let go. Should take a step back. Should maintain the command or composure she had built over years. But she didn't let go. Are you sure? She whispered. Partnership it's a lot. I'm sure. You barely know me. I've known you for months. I know your kids. I know the way you turn hardship into mission. I know the smile you hide when you think no one's watching. She swallowed hard. Brandon, and I know one more thing. He squeezed her hand. I know what it feels like to be alone, to eat in silence, to come home to an empty house, and I know I don't want that anymore. The audience was in absolute silence. Mrs. Marcy was blowing her nose loudly. Owen was holding Theo, who was vibrating with anticipation. Brandon let go of Maddie's hand and picked up the microphone. Can I say something? To everyone? She nodded, voiceless. He turned to the audience. His hands trembled slightly, a detail only she noticed. I came to this diner for the first time 3 years ago. His voice echoed through the space. I came every Tuesday and Thursday. Same place, same table, same loneliness. I told myself it was convenient, that the food was good, that it was on the way to the office. Pause. But the truth is I had nowhere else to go. The silence was heavy. I built a company, made money, bought a mansion with 6 empty bedrooms, and at no point did I realize I was building an empire for one person. He took a deep breath. Until the day a fork flew into my water glass. Soft laughter in the audience. You don't understand, Brandon smiled. That fork changed my life. He looked at Maddie. I saw a woman sharing a single plate of pasta with 2 children, and turning it into a military operation, into an adventure, into family. His voice got lower. I had a full plate in front of me, and I had never felt so hungry. Theo tugged at Owen's sleeve. Is he talking about us? Shh, Brandon continued. Maddie Clark taught me something no business course ever taught, that wealth isn't measured in dollars, it's measured in people waiting for you to come home. In children who shout your name when you walk in. In someone who shares the last piece of bread without thinking twice. Maddie was crying now, not trying to hide it. I spent my whole life building things alone, making decisions alone, eating alone. Brandon paused. I don't want to do anything alone anymore. He turned to her. Maddie? I don't know if I'll be a good partner. I don't know if I'll be a good whatever this becomes. But I know I want to try. With you. With Owen. With Theo. Every day. Owen interrupted from the middle of the audience. You've said opportunity 4 times already. That's still redundancy. The audience laughed. Brandon did too. Sorry, I'm nervous. Theo shouted, and your face is going back to the lemon. More laughter. Maddie wiped her tears, laughing. You two, let him speak. But Mom, he's doing it wrong. Brandon knelt in front of Maddie. The audience held their breath. This isn't what it looks like, he said quickly. Not yet, but it's a promise. She tilted her head. Promise of what? That I'll be here, tomorrow, next week, next month, until you believe I'm not going anywhere. Silence. Then Theo appeared on stage. No one saw how he got up there. He grabbed the microphone from Brandon. I want to talk too. The screeching feedback made everyone cover their ears. Theo, oblivious to the chaos, started singing. The rich man loves Mom. Mom loves the rich man. And I want a dog. Owen ran to the stage. Theo, let go of the microphone. No, it's my turn. The two started fighting over the microphone. Owen pulled from one side. Theo held on from the other. The cord got tangled in Owen's legs. Theo tripped. Both fell in a pile of arms and legs. The microphone rolled across the stage. Brandon caught it before it fell. Small, technical pause, he said to the audience. Soldiers in training. Mrs. Marcy shouted, This is better than a soap opera. Maddie helped separate the boys. Theo, Owen, behave. But Mom, I was going to make a nice speech. You were going to shout about a dog? It's the same thing. When order was restored relatively, Brandon took back the microphone. Where was I? The promise, Maddie reminded him. Ah, yes. He looked at her. The promise. He took a deep breath. Maddie Clark, I'm not asking for anything today. I'm not asking for an answer, commitment, or promise in return. I'm just saying that you and these two hurricanes are the best thing that ever happened to me. And if you give me a chance," he smiled, "I'll spend the rest of my days trying to be worthy of it." Silence. Theo whispered loudly, "Mom, that was romantic. You have to accept." Owen added, "Statistically, the probability of finding someone with this level of compatibility is 0.03%. Refusing would be mathematically insane." Maddie looked at Brandon, at her sons, at the diner full of people waiting, at the banner with her name, at everything she was afraid to believe in, and laughed. A laugh of surrender, of relief, of finally letting go of the weight she had been carrying for years. "Final mission report," she said, her voice trembling. "Reinforcements accepted." Brandon smiled, the full smile this time, not just one side. "Accepted? With reservations. You still can't cook, and the boys are going to test you to exhaustion, and I have trust issues the size of Texas. I accept the terms. And you need to fix the doorknob. First priority. And Theo is going to ask about a dog every day." "Every day," Theo confirmed. Maddie took a step forward, stood in front of Brandon, 3.7 centimeters apart. This time, nobody pulled away. "Brandon Cole," she said quietly, "you are the most stubborn, inconvenient, and absurdly kind person I've ever met." "Is that a compliment?" "It's a fact." She put her hand on his face. "And if you leave," her voice faltered, "if you disappear like he did, I won't." "Promise?" He put his hand over hers. "I promise, with deserter fork and all." She almost smiled. Almost. And then Mrs. Marcy lost her patience. "For goodness sake, just kiss that man already." The audience exploded in agreement. Maddie looked at Brandon. Brandon looked at Maddie. And this time, finally, there was no hesitation, except that Theo covered his eyes, shouting, "Eesh," but also, "Ah!" And Owen timed it. Kiss duration, 7.3 seconds, within acceptable parameters for public display of affection. But neither of them heard. Because for the first time in a long time, Maddie wasn't on a mission. She was home. The kiss ended. The world came back. Maddie opened her eyes and found Brandon smiling, that full smile she was still learning to recognize. 7.3 seconds. Owen repeated from the audience. "Not bad for a first kiss." "Owen, stop timing Mom's life. I time everything, it's methodology." Theo had already taken his hands off his eyes. "Is it over? Can I look? Was it a lot of kissing or a little kissing?" "Theo." Maddie was red-faced. "What? I need to know so I can tell everyone at school." The audience was laughing. Mrs. Marcy had given up pretending she wasn't recording. Jerry and Miles, who had come back after cleaning off the frosting, were applauding without really understanding the context. Brandon held Maddie's hand. "I'm not done yet." "There's more?" "There is." He signaled to someone backstage. A small box appeared. Dark blue velvet, the kind that only means one thing. Maddie felt the air leave her. "Brandon?" "Easy," he smiled. "It's not what you're thinking." "It's not?" "Well, it is, but it's more than that." He opened the box. There wasn't a ring. There were 3. The first was simple and elegant, silver with a small diamond. Perfect. The other 2 were smaller, soldier rings, silver with tiny star engravings. Owen's eyes went wide. "Mom, he has rings for us too?" Theo pushed everyone aside to see better. "I want to see. I want to see. Is it real?" Brandon knelt down. This time it was exactly what it looked like. "Maddie Clark," he began. "I spent weeks thinking about what to say. I rehearsed speeches. Owen corrected me several times. 8 times. Owen confirmed. He used opportunity too much. And Theo said my face looked like a lemon. It did." Brandon took a deep breath. "But in the end, there's only one thing that matters." He looked at her. "I love you. I love your children. I love the chaos, the disasters, the shouting, the calculations, the flying forks and the broken doorknobs. I love everything." Maddie was trembling. "Brandon? I don't want to be a business partner. I don't want to be the rich man who shows up at the diner." He paused. "I want to be family, if you'll let me." Theo couldn't take it. "Mom, he's asking. He's really asking. Say yes." Owen, more restrained. "Mom, statistically." "Owen, I know." She laughed through tears. "I know." Brandon raised the box. "Maddie Clark, will you accept being a family with me?" The diner held its breath. Maddie looked at the ring. At Brandon. At the 2 smaller rings. At her sons waiting with wide eyes. And the answer came easy. Easier than anything in her life. "Final report," she said, her voice choked. "Mission accepted, General." Brandon smiled. "That's a yes? It's a yes? A complete yes?" Theo needed to confirm. A complete yes, soldier. The audience exploded. Applause, cheers, whistles. Mrs. Marcy threw her napkin in the air and almost hit Jerry in the face. Brandon placed the ring on Maddie's finger. She looked at it gleaming under the light. It seemed unreal. It seemed right. Then Brandon turned to the boys. Owen, Theo, can you come here? Both of them got up on stage in 2 seconds. Theo tripping on the way, Owen calculating the most efficient trajectory. Brandon knelt down to their height. Soldiers, he said, serious. I asked your mom to marry me, but that doesn't mean anything if you don't agree. Owen tilted his head. You're asking for our authorization? I'm asking to be part of the troupe, officially. Theo's eyes went wide. Like a real dad? If you'll accept me. Silence. Owen processed the information. Are you going to live with us? If you'll let me. Are you going to fix the doorknob? First priority. Are you going to help with homework? I can try. My specialty is math. Owen considered. Math is acceptable. Do you know percentages? I do. Fractions? Also. Quadratic equations? Owen, you're 7 years old. I like to be prepared. Theo interrupted. Brandon, if you're going to be our dad, can we get a dog? Brandon looked at Maddie. Maddie raised her hands in surrender. We'll talk about it, Brandon said. That's not a no. It's not a no, it's we'll talk about it. I heard a yes. Brandon took the 2 smaller rings from the box. These are for you, soldier rings, to make it official that you're part of this mission. Owen examined the ring. It has stars engraved. 1 for each of you, and 1 for your mom. Theo was already putting his on. Soldier ring? I'm official now. Mom, I'm official. Owen put his on with more solemnity. This is symbolically significant. It's more than a symbol, Brandon said. It's a promise. I'm going to be here for both of you, always. Theo jumped onto Brandon's neck. Owen hesitated for a second, then hugged him too. Maddie watched, tears streaming, heart overflowing. Mrs. Marcy shouted, now that's a proper ending. All that's missing is the dog, right? Theo agreed without letting go of Brandon. The 4 stayed embraced on stage. Brandon, Maddie, Owen, Theo. A family that started with a shared plate of pasta, a flying fork, and a lonely man who discovered that true wealth doesn't fit in a bank account. When the party ended, when the guests left, when the new diner was empty and silent, the 4 of them left holding hands. The sun had set long ago, but the street lights created a soft glow. Theo was talking about the dog. It can be a golden, or a Labrador, or a giant mutt that looks like a bear. Owen was calculating, Mom's house has limited space. We need a medium-sized dog. Or consider moving. Maddie looked at Brandon. You know it's going to be like this every day, right? I know. Shouting about dogs, calculations about everything. Constant chaos. I know. He smiled. I can't wait. She leaned her head on his shoulder. Thank you. For what? For being stubborn, for not giving up, for showing up at the diner every Tuesday and Thursday until I stopped running. Brandon kissed the top of her head. I would show up every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday too, and Saturday, and Sunday. That's every day of the week. Exactly. Owen looked back. Mom, Brandon, are you being romantic again? Sorry, soldier. Salute suspended for emotional reasons. Theo added, it's allowed. I approve of the romance now. But only if it comes with a dog. They laughed, all 4 of them, together. A family. The family Maddie spent years trying to build alone. The family Brandon didn't know he was looking for. The family Owen analyzed with statistics and Theo announced to the world. Imperfect, loud, chaotic, perfect. Maddie looked at the 3 walking ahead, her 2 boys and the man who chose to stay, and thought of a phrase she had heard once, couldn't remember where. Sometimes, a war becomes home, and a shared plate becomes family. She didn't know if the phrase really existed or if she had made it up. But it didn't matter, because it was true. Mom, Theo shouted from ahead. Stop thinking and come on. We have to plan the dog. We still haven't decided about the dog. But we're going to decide. Owen, do the math. I'm already calculating the monthly costs of food, vet bills, and possible damage to furniture. Brandon extended his hand to Maddie. She accepted. And together, all 4, they walked home, to the new home, the new life, the new beginning. A commander who learned to accept reinforcements, a general who found his battalion, and 2 soldiers who finally had a complete family, plus a dog, under negotiation. What did you think of Maddie, Owen, Theo, and Brandon's journey? From a warrior mother turning a plate of pasta into a military operation to finding someone who wasn't afraid of her chaos? Leave your opinion in the comments. On a scale of 0 to 10, what score would you give this story? What was your favorite moment? The dessert or fork that changed everything? Carl's epic fall into the cake? The soldier rings for Owen and Theo? Or the marriage proposal on stage? Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to receive more emotional stories like this one. And who knows? In the next story, you might find out if Maddie finally gave in to Theo's eternal request for a dog. See you next time.